This is Lynn Clark again. We're going to go ahead and kick off our second presentation of the afternoon. I'm really excited to have Jake and Dr. Sanders from University of South Florida to lead this effort for us, because I think they have a great plan. They have a great setup here with the program, and Jake has been running the original program up in the Northeast with the community of schools up there for about a year and a half before now.
Correct. We started our local competition in 2013, and the regional comps for the CAE community have been for the last 2 years.
Yeah. So what we thought that was such a success that we wanted to try this now at the national level. And what we're going to take a look at from a program management point of view is what this program does for us, both in terms of our competency efforts, what this looks like in terms of competitions overall for developing students. And between this initiative and the competency initiative, we've got a whole group of faculty that are working on how do you use competitions in competency development. And so later on in one of our future workshops, we'll have a briefing from that team about how that's going and what they're thinking. But today, Jake and Dr. Sanders are going to be briefing us on what we're going to call our new CAE National Competition Program. Jake?
Thanks, Lynn.
All yours.
And I'm really happy to be here. And I will say it's great to do this, but I really miss the actual in-person meetings. There's something about being in the same room with 300 other cybersecurity professors and program leaders that can't quite get that same feel over Zoom, but we'll work with what we have for today. And I'm really happy to be here and excited about this project. So we are the CAEC National Competition. I am Jake Mihivik from Mohawk Valley Community College, and my colleague, Dr. Ron Sanders, is with me from USF.
Hey, everybody.
We have, as this grant launched, we created for all the professionals and all of the academics that are working on this project, we're starting a new entity, CAE Cyber Games or C² Games or C2 Games. We're still kind of working on that. But that's who you'll see on the kind of outskirts of this. And I'm happy to talk you through the project plan. So first up is talking about the CNY Hackathon. And we have been running the CNY Hackathon in upstate New York since 2013. And this is a shot of when everybody gets together at the very end of the event, and we all kind of talk about what went well and what went poorly, and they learn from each other. And it's that experience that you see there that's really what has motivated us to continue to get better. So we have been running our event every semester since the spring of 2013. We have about 100 to 110 students each semester, and it's an intentional trial by fire. Every semester we try something new, we discard something that didn't work, and we've been working really hard to get better, and we have a number of lessons learned, and I think that's how we got to where we are now. Constant experimentation, constant assessment of how we did, and constant improvement, we hope. One of the things that we learned right away was we needed to invest a lot of engineering time and a lot of time and effort into what the scoreboard looks like. And this is a quick look at one of our more recent iterations of the scoreboard. And this dynamic scoreboard really drives student engagement. And this is up in each of the team rooms. It's up in all of the club rooms that participate wherever they are, and they can constantly see how their team is doing compared to others. On the top half, you see in the very top bar, the deeper green, that's their score on the infrastructure challenges. The lime green is how they've done on CTF, and the red is always kind of other. But in this way, they can constantly see how they're doing. On the bottom half of the scoreboard are their services. So the infrastructure element of the event requires them to protect and defend each of those services. And our scoreboard indicates to the teams in real time whether that service is up, whether it's down, whether it's incomplete. And that adds a lot to the event. So we will continue to expand this scoring system and our scoring engine as we move forward. But we learned that we need this. More importantly, we've learned that you need to very closely manage the competitive element. We're here. We know that there are a number of subsets of our student populations that are not driven to engagement by competition as much as others. So we've learned to closely manage that. And this team that you see right here, these were the winners of the spring 2018 CNY Hackathon. And that's our goal. That's a group of students that didn't know each other before the event, learned to work together. They're from 4 different colleges, every gender, every racial denomination, not every, but that is a diverse group of students that didn't know each other before the event, and they came together and worked together well and quote unquote won the event. So what we've learned is that can't be all about winning. And what we've done at the CNY Hackathon is we encourage the behavior we want to see. So we give out equally valuable awards to each team's most valuable teammate and most improved student. And those are the same prizes that the winners get. And that kind of shapes how the students see the event. We also have professionalized our red team by incorporating former students into the red team. I think we have all been at events where the red team gets a little bit overzealous and has a little bit more fun for them and a little less learning for the students. We've really taken that to the next level. Our red team has a very specific plan. They increment varying levels of vulnerabilities and attacks based on the students' abilities to respond. And when they see that a team is really not at the highest level, they back off a bit. And then they also have left breadcrumbs throughout the systems to kind of lead the students to the correct answer in the cases where they're not advanced enough to mitigate an attack on their own. So we're more testing their adaptability than what do they know, and that's been pretty successful. We also moved to Discord relatively early to manage all of our internal and external comms. And this was a huge breakthrough for us. Rather than using email and more static communications elements, as you can see, some of this is blurred to protect the names of the innocent here. However, on the left-hand side, you can see all of the different channels that we run. And every single team has their own channel. All of the faculty has their own channel. And each of our back-end teams, the black team, which runs infrastructure, the red team that runs all of the attacks, and our orange team, which runs CTF, we're able to constantly communicate and make sure that we coordinate the event on the back end in a way that we never were able to before. And that was a big breakthrough for us. In addition to that, we moved to where the students are. We're working on a platform that the students are very comfortable with. They want to be in Discord. We never get a question about what's Discord or how do I get into Discord. They're in there right away, and that makes it so the event is much more student friendly. Our competition platform is we run everything through the Proxmox virtualization platform. We really like all of the advanced networking capabilities that it gives us. It's also on Linux, which is our thing. And we're not wasting any resources on any of our hardware. We are just delivering a really well-designed networking environment to the students that participate. And we're happy to talk about how our platform is designed and share out. This is a quick look at how our event is structured from a networking standpoint. So each team gets their own network, and the first task that each team has to do is to configure their router, and that gets them warmed up to working together, working in the environment. And here you see all kinds of all of our external scoring engine items and all the different things that we have sitting outside of their team networks. So knowing that the Cny Hackathon was a relative success in Central New York, and that we had made a number of innovations, we, as the CAE Regional Resource Center, we decided to run some pilots with the CAE community. So we ran Northeast Region events in 2018 and 2019 that went quite well. They beat our own expectations. It was our first time running a remote event, and it really went quite well. One of the main things that we found that kind of led us to this proposal and this project is that some of our CAEs that participated, including Penn State and Norwich, their feedback to us was that this was perfect for their students that were not yet competing. They have established CCBC teams and NCL participation. That they thought that our event was perfect for getting students ready for those more future competitions. And that really got us going down the road that we did. So that photo that you see is one of the teams that participated in the regional event. And here's a breakdown of who was kind of the part of the pilot of this project as we worked out some kinks and thought through what worked and what didn't. That brings us to this project, which we're extremely excited for. And I want to say thank you to everyone else in the cyber competition space and all of my colleagues that I see at all the conferences and online conferences that really contributed to the design of this proposal and where we are now, because there's a lot of really good work happening in this space, and we tried to cater our proposal so that we don't do too much overlap and we don't compete, rather we contribute and help with the national collaboration. So the goals of our project are, number one, keep the student experience first. Make sure we think, if I were a new student doing my first competition, what would I need to be comfortable? What would I expect to see? How would I expect to be treated during the event? How would I want to take the next step after the event? Those types of things we're constantly thinking, and that's our main driving factor. Our focus is on students who are new to competition. And there are some challenges to that. When we are running a competition for 150-ish schools and a few thousand students, not 100% sure how we're going to determine and make sure that we don't get any ringers into the event. I'll be looking for help from the CAE community on that front. But this is really an event that's designed for students who are new to competition, want to develop the skills and comfort level necessary. And that's our main focus. We want all their experiences in our event to be formative, to have a real lasting influence on how they develop as cybersecurity students. I showed you the photo at the beginning of this presentation of our report out session. And that's, as an educator, that's where the competitions really give me that warm and tingly feeling that we're really doing something meaningful. So we want to make sure that we bring that to the national event. When you have a team of students stand up and explain how their day went horribly off the rails because they made a serious mistake and the red team exploited it, all the people in that room learn from that. And we wanted to make sure we replicate that on a national level. We want to make sure that faculty have the capacity to contribute to competitions, to run a local competition if they would like, and to contribute to the larger effort that we're part of. Expand and enhance the student capacity and support their clubs. We think that our platform is a really easy way for clubs to have access to beginning exercises and warm-ups and practice environments. It's a clientless platform, so they don't need any special tools or access. They just access it through a web page. And so that's what we're hoping to do on the student end. I'll talk in a minute about what we'd like to do as far as the structure, the challenges themselves. We know that we don't know it all and that we aren't the final decider of what should be in every single competition. We have a baseline that we're going to build on top of, but we're leaning on the CAE community to contribute to the challenge design and what goes into each event. And we hope we built a framework to make it easy for everyone to do that. As I mentioned, we're not here to compete with any existing competitions. We're here to support and link into. Those are just some examples of some of the people that we have talked to and we hope to partner with We're not here to compete, we're here to collaborate. And as we work through the first year of this competition, we will be collecting different exercises that faculty and industry partners across the country, we hope, have designed and contributed. And those don't belong to us. Those belong to the CAE community. And we have some ideas, and we're open to other ideas about how to make sure that that library is available to be leveraged and be as valuable as it possibly can be moving forward. So as I mentioned, we have been working on our infrastructure and CTF elements of our event, but we don't want it to be just us. This is the baseline. So right now we are a Linux-oriented infrastructure challenge, and this is a list of all of the services that we currently have exploits and expect the students to defend within virtual machines. So this will be the baseline. And as we work on regional events and the national finals that Ron and USF are in the lead on, this is the baseline that we'll build on top of. And this is by no means a limiting factor. It's more something we'll build on. Our CTF is also very robust, but there is a lot of good CTF content out there. This is what our CTF looks like right now. And we're aware that there are a lot of other CTF concepts out there. And our intention is to be as inclusive as possible and not say that this is what CTF should be. That will be up to the regions to give us some good feedback on. What do we want to align to? First of all, being a CAE program, our goal is to align to the CAE knowledge units. And as you look at the knowledge units, I think that the outcomes are a little bit more appropriate than just the subject matter. So where the CAE knowledge units suggest that a student shall be able to do this, that action, that part of the Bloom's taxonomy applies a lot more than a list of topics. And so we're going to focus on the CAE knowledge unit outcomes as we build out our scope of what may or be part of each event that we run. We also know that the NICE framework, and we know that there are new versions of the NICE framework that are possibly on the way soon, but we know that the work role and adopting a work role into our competition can be helpful as we try to align with NICE and everything that NICE can contribute as far as alignment and framework for the event. But I can't stress enough the CAE sourced element of the event. And we really do want all of your contributions. As I've been attending all the events and part of the leadership team for the last 4 or 5 years, I know that there are great ideas out there. And whenever I have this discussion about competition, there are 10 people that are really interested in talking about innovative things that they've done and challenges that they've built. We want to capture those and we want to incorporate those into our platform. So our black team and red team right now are working really hard on a very clear framework that we will issue so that every faculty member in the CAE program knows that if they have a really unique way of testing a student's ability to do a certain action in a competitive environment, they can package that effort up in a way that corresponds with our request for challenge, our call for challenges, and submit it to us, and we will incorporate it into a future event based on whether the region would like to run it or not. So we will put out a call for challenges sometime in the near future, and our goal is to make sure that everything is very clear as to how things will be submitted. CTF and some challenges will be more text-based, and they'll be a little bit less tech-intensive. The infrastructure challenges have a larger stipend because there's a little bit more level of technical sophistication. And we are right now working on, and just for those of you that are in this space, we're planning to use Ansible as a provisioning agent. And our plan is to have the technical submissions work right within Ansible, and we'll have a really good walkthrough for everybody. But this is really what will make or break the event is the willingness and the time and effort that CAE faculty and industry partners across the country put into submitting these challenges. And we're very open to comments and If those stipends are not sufficient or don't reflect the level of effort that it ends up being required, we can have some serious discussions about that. But the stipends are there because we know how much time and effort can go into some challenge development, and we want to make sure that while many of you are very generous with your time, that this stays on the priority list. I'll just put it that way. As far as engaging with all of you as faculty, one of the first things that is a principle of ours is transparency about our platform. Nothing about how we run our event is secret. We have a really talented group of engineers and academics that work together on running the back end of the event, but we want everyone to expand into this field. And if we have questions about how Proxmox operates, how we've designed our networking, those kinds of things, we're very happy to run some seminars and share what we've learned from trial and error over the last 7 years. We plan to roll out tools, tutorials, and activities, and those will be within our practice environment. And our goal is to make sure that it's easy for faculty to work with to start with, and that they understand how everything works and how to get students ready for competition, so that they're very comfortable with helping their students. And as I mentioned, opportunity for faculty to directly contribute and help shape the event through the regional comps. We know that a number of students are not ready, and this especially, and they may be apprehensive. And we know that especially with males and young men, the competitive element compels them. It makes them want to engage with the event, and it really drives them. And we know that's not necessarily the case for other subgroups of the student population. So we're planning to build out a very robust sandbox and practice environment that's an on-ramp to competitions, that's a no risk, very easy to access area where students can start at the very beginning of understanding how to compete and what challenges look like, and very comfortably build up their skills so that when they actually compete for the first time, they're really comfortable, and they know why they're there, and they know that it's not just about winning. So we're hopeful that helps, and in this area we also hope to align closely with all of the other events that work in this space as well. As Lynn mentioned, the competency effort is really something that lots of us are focused on, and there's many of us on this call are likely focused on right now. I am happy to be a part of the CAE Evidence and Competencies work group. There are 3 subgroups that are part of that. I'm working very closely with Dan Manson on the competition subgroup of that work group, and I'm happy to work with Suzanne and Vin on the other elements. And I hope that there's no space. I hope there is no error between what that work group thinks we should be piloting and how we should be looking at this and how we actually proceed. As we've researched this, one of the things that we know was a challenge is to settle on a competency, a nationally defined and comfortable competency that everyone can clearly understand. I know that between the NICE work group and everyone that's involved in this, there have been some efforts on that front, but actually having a competency that we have to work against is challenge 1. And challenge 2, I think many of you are aware of, is the challenges of breaking out individual performance within a team setting. And we've been doing a lot of brainstorming on that. There's been some work done in this field. But if we'd like to get to the point where we can say that this student exhibited these behaviors, and therefore we issued them this badge, we really have to figure out a way to break out that student's efforts, and we're working on that. There's nothing wrong with a team badge, and I think that has been discussed, and that's an option, but I think that's one of our biggest challenges, is working towards how to badge an individual's performance within a team event. So as we spool up and we have our practice environment, when we're getting ready for our regional events, and looking forward very much to working with Tony's national leadership group and all of the regional hubs as we build out the regional events. So as this grant is built together, we have we're planning on a regional lead from each region, and we'll be working with the regional hubs to identify that lead and make sure that they're comfortable with what we're expecting. But as I mentioned, each of the events can look and feel how each region would like them to feel. So that region will get together and talk about what challenges they would and would not like in their event, scheduling and participation, lots of different elements. Well, we are not planning to be the decider on every element of the regional events. We're here to provide the regional event and work with the region on what they would like. So our baseline will be there. But one of the big challenges is obviously to achieve a balance between the local customization that we very much desire to offer to each region and some kind of national consistency, so that those that go to the national finals event that Ron and USF are in the lead on does reflect some level of consistency about how they got there. And so we know that that's going to be a major challenge, and we're working on that. And as designed,
Jake, if I could just interject, that is a key issue, and frankly, Lynn, we'd look to you and to Tony and the regional hubs to help reconcile what is I believe, a healthy tension between local customization and national consistency. We want the regional events to be consistent enough so we can make apples to apples comparisons. We also want them to be able to feed a single national competition. At the same time, we don't want to lose local flavor. So your guidance and input, as well as other folks online today, will be more than welcome.
Thanks, Ron. And lastly, as of right now, for the first year of the CAE national competition, which will run next year, starting next September, we have slots for up to 165 CAE institutions. And obviously, scoping our proposal was a challenge, and forecasting who will and will not participate. We do have some options if there is more interest than that, but we know that the first time that we do this, we typically receive a certain response rate, and that's about what we think we will see. And we have some options if interest exceeds our existing capacity. With that, I will pass this off to my colleague, Ron Sanders, to talk a little bit about USF's part of this partnership and the national finals competition.
Thanks, Jake. And in the interest of time and logistics, if you want to go ahead and click and get all of the bullets up there rather than try to coordinate the animation, that would be great. And while Jake is doing that, we just got a question in, Jake, on the chat about how much this will cost. And I think you told me that people should write a check for $50,000 to you personally. Is that correct?
My retirement fund, not me directly.
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. As I just suggested, the national competition intended to be annual has to be coordinated with MVCC and obviously whatever local competitions occur, as well as the regional ones. And I got to say, we're really excited about the marriage between Mohawk Valley and USF and Cyber Florida. As you've heard, Jake and his team have a ton of experience, particularly in using competitions to assess hard technical skills. And Cyber Florida is bringing some experience primarily in the soft skill area when it comes to competitions, but also a fair amount of resources so that we can make sure that this is scalable over time. But we, so far, and I think this will bear out, the two teams have blended very nicely, and I think that's going to benefit everybody here. In that respect, as I said, we do have a cloud-based technical platform. We're going to start with Jake's as the initial platform for the competitions. How much we use of our cloud-based technical platform remains to be seen as we scale up, but this is very much crawl, walk, run. So more to come on that. And I might add that my presentation is less specific. It's more about, let's say, design issues and principles. And that's intended to ensure that, you know, this is not yet a fully baked cake. And we want lots of comment and input. And next slide, please, Jake. One of the things that we created to oversee the national competition, and again, at least by implication, some consistency with the regional efforts, is an NFL-style competition committee. People who know a little bit about cyber competitions. For example, we have a young man who's been key to the US Cyber Challenge competition. But as you can see, some of the other players that we have, obviously Cyber Florida and MVCC, we've brought in what we think are some unique perspectives from gamers like EA Sports and a number of independent video gamers to help design the national competition. We have seats at the table for the regional hubs, and it just so happens that University of South Florida has a very robust esports effort, actually funded by the guy who owns the Tampa Bay Lightning Stanley Cup champions. And so we're excited about incorporating them into that competition committee. Next slide, please, Jake. We are working on branding and marketing strategies, and you can see some of that in today's presentation. I will tell you that one of the challenges, and we've been back and forth and soliciting lots of input here, we want to brand the competition in a way that attracts people who traditionally go to these competitions and at the risk of being indelicate. I think that's young males, but at the same time, we don't want a brand that turns off women and minorities, because we want to be as inclusive as possible. So we're looking at various brand names and branding strategies to ensure that we attract all of those, that somebody doesn't look at this and say, this is not for me. And you can see who we're closely coordinating with, again, to focus on a diverse set of teams, and also to measure a diverse set of skills, both technical skills as well as soft skills, individual as well as team. Now, that's not easy, but we've heard from the employers we've talked to so far, and we will coordinate this with some of the other grants that reach out to employers. And they tell us that while they are looking for individual technical skills, they're also looking for people who can work and play well with others. They're looking for soft skills like analytic, tradecraft, critical thinking, some of which may involve ones and zeros, some of which may not. So again, work in progress. These are some of the challenges, but they're not new to this group. Next slide, please. We're still working with Lynn and others about what what the awards and prizes will look like, what sponsorships are permitted, whether the teams are from each institution, which certainly adds to the competitive flavor. But we're leery, as Jake said, about too much competition, hyper competition. So another option is to have regional all-stars. The two aren't mutually exclusive. And again, we're looking for your input. And you can see that we're looking at about mid to late 2021, this time next year ish, for the first national competition, with the regional ones preceding that. Next slide, please, Jake. And here's the overall timeline. And Jake, over to you if you want to pick up the baton. But again, work in progress, not fully baked, lots of interesting challenges, but we relish them. We're working very well with Jake and his team, and we want to make sure that we reach out to all of you too and provide lots of opportunities for input.
Thanks, Ron. So this is one of our last slides to talk about the timeline, and apologies, there's a minor typo. The bottom two arrows should be 22. So by January of next year, we will put out our call for challenges, and our goal is to make that as clear as we possibly can about, and easy about, how you can submit your challenges for your regional event. Next February, we will have our sandbox and training environment up and running and available to any students, so that in the middle of this most students' spring semester, they can start getting warmed up for what would be to come in the fall. We plan to run our regional competitions between September of 2021 and March of 22. So we have fewer when you look at the semesters that most schools run on and the weeks and the holidays, it is a little tight to get in as many 165 different schools competing and doing so within regions to get ready to feed into the national finals. But we can do it, and we've got some unique ways of getting that done. And then our goal is to run the national finals competition that Ron and USF will lead somewhere around May of 2022. And it's always been our goal to have that be in some way, shape, or form part of the CAE Executive Leadership Forum event that we typically run at that time of the year. So that's our timeline for the first year of competition. And wrapping things up with, the thing we're always looking at is, after all of the time and effort and collaboration that we go through in the next year and a half, we will have about 2,000 CAE students participate in their first competition. We'll have found a way to issue prizes in each region for not only the quote unquote winners, but those that are most valuable teammates, those that have improved the most, and make sure that they know that it's not just about competition and they know what is coming next. We're going to have CAE faculty that are comfortable contributing challenges and comfortable with how they upload. We are going to be sure to provide attribution within the events to those that submit the challenges, so that they know that, for example, this forensics challenge was developed by Professor Dr. whomever from whichever college they're from, right on the event, so that there's attribution. And then we know that this is a big challenge, but we're really looking forward to piloting competency validation and badging within our competition in close collaboration with the CAE Evidencing Competencies Work Group. So that's where we hope that we land after we have completed this project. I was not so brave as to look into the chat while I was presenting, so I'm a little bit in the dark. I think we have some NSA colleagues that are going to frame some questions. But if you please, Ron and I are really happy to interact with you through some questions that you might type in the chat box.
Well, let me just add a couple of things right off the top. I'm glad you didn't look in the chat, because the level of enthusiasm is a little bit overwhelming. I'm so glad that everybody thinks this is a great idea. From a program management point of view, we really want you all on your competitions team to work with the regions and come up with the model that works best across the board. So in terms of how you're going to do the national competition run, it matters not to me. It may be different from region to region. You may have one region that wants to have individual schools compete, or in another region, they may want to do all-stars. And, I think that's fine. I'm looking forward to the day when we can pit region against region at the ELF. And whether you have any amount of live competition going on that attendees can drop in on at the ELF, or if all we do, you have the competition before and all you do is present some kind of awards or something. I think it would be really cool to have as many students there as possible, demonstrating the power of what this kind of effort can do for motivating and educating students. So, whatever we can do within the bounds of the funding we have to invest, we'll support whatever the community, you all and the schools want to do. Okay.
Those are great ideas. And I think Jake and I are equally enthusiastic about doing this. And it sounds like you all are most interested in being as flexible as possible. So we'll have some fun with it.
Ann Conkey asked about cost, and our intention is that virtual participation has no cost to you all at the CAEs. That's one of the reasons that we funded this the way we did. We want to see, what I said earlier about pilots is true here as well. We think we know how this is going to run. Jake and Ron both have a lot of experience in this area, but we'll learn as we go. My personal bet is that we're going to challenge the 165 threshold. If the enthusiasm I'm seeing today is any indicator of that, and we'll do what we can to help support what needs to be done. There are some limits to what the government can pay for in terms of awards and recognitions, and Alice Smitley on our team is our expert on that. So you all work with her on what you can and can't do with what you've already been provided, and then industry and other partners jumping in the past have been useful alternatives to us when we've done events and things like that. So certainly Alice can help you figure out all of the rules associated with that as well. Okay.
That's great to hear, Lynn, because frankly, we've heard just as much enthusiasm from potential employers who would see this as a great way to identify talent. And, they've said, how can we help, both financially as well as in-kind support? So we'll work with your team to take advantage of that.
Okay. So do any of you out there have other questions?
Lynn, I'll add that a question for you. Tony Colson asked me if we would allow for graybeard, grayhead teams, and I told him no, but you may want to.
He wants to play, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there's, in all seriousness, I think there are a lot of ways that when we see how this goes and we learn how to leverage what's going on here, that we could certainly expand in the future into other things. It might be interesting to have faculty teams competing, especially those that are moving into cyber from other fields that are in faculty development programs. This might be a fun way to engage them too. So we'll just have to keep our eye on it and see how things evolve.
Yeah, if they're brave enough. I will say I don't envy you and Tony and others. I do think one of the big challenges, and Jake and I have talked about this, is not only internally coordinating with the regions and between Jake and Cyber Florida, et cetera, but more importantly, coordinating this grant with the other grants. Yes. And we're on a couple of other grant teams. I see Iman El-Sheikh is on the line. And we're creating an employers network, we're doing branding, we're doing job fairs, all of which I think could be leveraged and would probably want to be as part of the competition. So I think making sure we're all talking to each other all the time. We may not be perfect the first iteration, but as we learn, I think making sure that all of these dots are connected will be important.
That's a great point, Ron. And once we get past this launch period and give everybody a chance to think about what they're going to be doing, the program office will schedule another webinar probably in January, where we'll invite all of the leads from all of the initiatives, just so that we can do some of that cross-pollination and talk about ways that you can leverage each other before we move into any kind of fiscal year 21 expansion or investments.
Right.
So that we know, that we got it right when we issued the grants, and that there aren't any gigantic gaping holes out there that we're going to need to fill to make some of this work the correct way.
Great, thank you.
Stephen, I see your question. I appreciate you bringing that forward. There is a lot of thought that's going into that. How many teams we have and the size of the teams. We want to keep the student experience first. And as you can see, it's important to me that the students learn from one another. And I think once you have an individual regional event get a little bit bigger than, say, 10 teams, it's harder to do that wrap-up event where students can connect with one another about what went well, what went poorly, anything funny that happened throughout the day. So while we may be running events or have Saturdays where we have 20 teams competing, it's probably our intention to run 2 separate 10-team events so that you can have that feeling of learning from one another. And we found that in our events, we found that once you get beyond perhaps 10 students or so, maybe 11 students, it becomes a little bit more difficult for the students to internally organize and to get as much out of it. So that's roughly the number of students that we intend to have on each team.
The good news, bad news is that as we've all said, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and in this particular instance, at the risk of being indelicate, these kinds of competitions are very democratic. Small schools can compete against big schools. It's the intellect of the individual members and how they mesh as a team. And it doesn't matter whether you're a huge institution or a small one. I think Jake and his team are a great example. Mohawk Valley Community College is comparatively small, but boy, does he have a great team, and we're learning a lot from him. And I think that's just emblematic of the rest of the competition.
Yep. I think Jake has a lot of experience with keeping this focused on students learning how to compete. And there are lots of other quote unquote, I'll say higher level competitions, even though I don't think that's the right word to use, that they can move on to once they've kind of chewed their teeth on learning from you guys. So I want to be conscious of keeping this down at the engagement and learning level, and it's easy to get swept away in the competition part. So I know that you guys are both good at doing that, but as you feel the pressure from maybe some of the other schools, I'd appreciate you keeping it clear to them that one of our goals in this is to develop competency and to engage students that might otherwise not play. And so that we're building that expertise.
I think that's critical. And Jake, you weigh in. We've had lots of discussions about our niche in that grand scheme of competitions, and I think figuring out what is best to call it. We don't want to be known as sort of the AA ball or the farm team for the big leagues.
Right.
That's not what I think, Lynn, you're saying.
No.
But it is a different purpose, and it can fit with those other competitions. We just need to figure out how to best characterize it.
Mm-hmm. So I did see a question in here on how to get access to the student sandbox. Jake, I think you said that your goal is to have that up in January?
Correct. Actually, February 1st is our goal for that, but we may beat that deadline based on how my faculty members are dropping every other project and cranking away at engineering right now. As a dean, I'm not sure outside of this meeting if I can officially support that, but in this meeting, I'm excited that they're prioritizing.
Okay, well, and so like everything else, I would say keep your eye on your emails and keep your eye on the community webpage. And as each of these projects matures, where they are and what's available, that's where you're going to see it first, is either in a blast email that says, good news, the competition sandbox is available, here's how you get there. And then as the program goes on, then there'll be a place for it on the web page. Our goal is that everything that we're doing may have its own web page, but it will also have a placeholder at the community website so that you can always go there to find your way on what's going on, whether it's workforce development or competitions or competency. And either the information will be there or it will link you to where you can go to find it. Okay.
Lynn, it's Yair. Jake, Ron, amazing project. This is really exciting. Looking forward. One thing I want to maybe just comment on, some of the competitions that we've looked at, majority of them tend to be very technical. We have a group of especially female, in minority females that are a larger portion of our masters in cybersecurity management. And every time we look at those competitions, they come back to me and Wei, who's here on the call as well. And they say, you know, there are so many configurations things that this is beyond us. But if they will ask us questions on social engineering or things related to the softer side, policies, things like that, we can crack the hell out of it. So the question is, do you also want to consider maybe expanding, and obviously, you know, we can talk later, but into more of the human factor in cybersecurity, the cybersecurity management aspect? Would that be an interest, or would that be something separate, you think, because of the nature of how it's structured?
We certainly do, Yair, and thank you for that comment. And I think that when we put this proposal together, we tried to do it in a way that reflects the CAE community's influence on all of us over the time. And we completely recognize that you are a perfect example of why we built the stipend structure into the grant. And it will certainly have a capacity to accept lesser technical challenges. And our goal is that you will feel comfortable designing and uploading a challenge. That challenge will be there for a test drive. And then in your region will talk about what challenges are in your regional event, and hopefully yours will make the list. And we have the capacity to deliver a great number of challenges and to customize it based on regional preferences. So your comment is right in line with how we have designed this event to hopefully encourage just that kind of collaboration.
Right.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And I'll second that. Look, I spent almost 4 decades doing things like trying to identify and hire cyber talent. And I know that while technical skills are critical, there are other skills that are as important, especially, and you know, we're designing this competition as a team sport. Yeah, we need to identify individual excellence, but we also are looking at team excellence. Some of the badges and awards that Jake mentioned earlier, I think, reflect that. So that is clearly on the table, particularly from a national standpoint. We want to make sure that it's not just the hard technical skills, the ones and zeros, but some of the equally rigorous, but some would say softer skills too, like critical thinking.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
On a similar note, yeah, we're trying to develop a cybersecurity management case competition. Please reach out. Let's work together. And I think Anne had a comment at University of Detroit Mercy as well. So any folks who are interested, let's for the software or the management part of it, let's work together to develop a cybersecurity management case competition. And we can utilize the regional hub structure that Lynn is putting together to see that, and we can hop it around and see if it can at some point become a national competition, for instance.
I would certainly be interested in being part of that conversation.
Sure.
Okay.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Hey, any other questions? Well, I really appreciate everybody being here today and joining in the conversation, and let your peers and your compatriots know what's going on here. I think Jake and Ron have made it clear that they're looking for input. They want participation, and we want to make this fit the needs of everyone, of all of the schools out there. You know, because this is, I think this is going to be a great tool for the program at large. So thank you guys. That was a great briefing. Every time I hear about it, it's exciting, and I'm anxious to see how this goes. And I wish I could be there when these competitions happen to watch how the students learn and what they learn, because they learn so much about working together and building teams and listening and clearing how they speak and everything, in addition to all the technology that they learn about. So Okay, thanks, everybody. We have about 5 minutes if anybody wants to take a quick break and get something to drink or get rid of something you drank or whatever you need to do. And we'll start up again at 2:30.
Thanks for being here, everyone. Looking
Thanks,
forward to
Lynn.
working with you.
Thanks, everybody. No pressure, Jake, huh?
Thank you.
Yeah.